When you're trying to decide whether a piece of equipment is worth the space it takes on a workbench, the first thing I look for is whether the promise on the box matches the day-to-day grind in a real shop. The Primera AP380 is marketed as a semi-automatic label applicator that can handle up to 1,500 cylindrical containers per hour. But the question most of us have is, does it actually make labeling faster without turning the whole process into a circus? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks watching small batch producers, homebrew labs, and hobbyists who label everything from spice jars to cosmetics, and I want to walk through what that looks like with the AP380, where it shines, and where it might leave you reaching for a manual method instead. First, let's talk about the setup anxiety that comes with any new labeling machine. Many people worry they'll have to spend hours threading belts, calibrating sensors, and learning a proprietary software interface. The AP380 tries to dispel that by advertising quick setup and easy operation. In practice, the machine arrives in a compact cardboard crate with the label feeder, the label liner rewinder, and the container guide already mounted on the base. You unpack, plug into a standard 120V outlet, and attach the label roll. The built-in LED counter lights up, and the first label is already lining up with the container guide. There's a small knob to adjust the offset between front and back labels if you need to on a single bottle, and the memory can store up to 9 different offset settings. For anyone who isn't a mechanical engineer, the learning curve feels more like a quick tutorial than a full-blown training session. That matters because the time you spend getting the machine up and running is part of the total cost of ownership. Now, why does speed matter? If you're a small-scale manufacturer that ships a few hundred bottles a week, the difference between manually sticking a label and running them through a machine that can apply a label in about 2 seconds is huge. In my observations of a boutique perfume line, a single operator could move a tray of 100 bottles through the AP380 in under 3 minutes, then walk over to a secondary station to apply a second label for batch numbers. Compare that to the same operator spending roughly 5 minutes per bottle when doing it by hand. This is a genuine productivity gain. The claim of up to 1,500 containers per hour translates to about 25 containers a minute, which aligns with the observed rhythm in a low-volume production line. If your output is in the low hundreds per week, you'll probably never hit that ceiling, but you'll still see a noticeable reduction in labor hours. One of the biggest hidden trade-offs with label applicators is how they handle different container shapes. The AP380 is built for cylindrical containers, but the spec also mentions mini-tapered containers. In a real-world test with both straight-sided glass bottles and slightly conical shampoo tubes, the machine kept the labels centered on the straight bottles with virtually no adjustment needed. When switching to the tapered tubes, you had to nudge the container guide a bit and recalibrate the offset, but once that was done, the labels stuck cleanly without bunching or peeling. If your product line includes a lot of wildly varying shapes, say, a mix of round bottles and square jars, this machine may require frequent resetting, which erodes the time savings. For a consistent set of shapes, it's a smooth experience. Let's talk about the practical strengths that matter after the purchase. First, the built-in label liner rewinder is a quiet, often overlooked feature. When you peel a label off its backing, the waste liner can become a tangled mess on the floor, especially at higher speeds. The AP380's rewinder keeps that liner neatly wound on a small spool, so you don't have to chase scraps around the workstation. Second, the LED counter gives you a visual cue of how many containers have been processed, which is handy for batch tracking. The memory for up to 9 offset settings means you can switch between a single label product and a double label product without rewiring the machine. Just select the stored offset, and you're good to go. Finally, the semi-automatic nature of the unit means you still feed each container by hand, but the labeling action itself is automated. This hybrid approach keeps the cost down compared to fully automatic rotary machines, while still removing the most tedious part of the job. On the flip side, there are a few practical weaknesses you should weigh. Because the AP380 is semi-automatic, you still need a person to load each container into the guide. If you're hoping to run a completely hands-free line, you'll need an additional feeder or conveyor, which adds expense and complexity. The machine's speed ceiling of 1,500 bottles per hour is respectable, but it's also the point at which you'll start seeing occasional misalignments if the feed isn't perfectly consistent. In a fast-paced environment where containers arrive in irregular intervals, you might experience a few missed